What are your feelings towards racing here in Indianapolis? Is this a special track for you?
Special for all of us. I think, growing up in Kentucky, for one, you always watched the Indy 500, and never really dreamed, never really thought that I'd ever get to race on this place. And so much history, so much things that you cherish when you grow through the tunnel here at the big Indy racetrack. And, we raced the Busch Series and the Xfinity Series raced over on IRP back in the day, and that place is so much fun, and it's hard to give up that to come here. But also when they brought the schedule here, brought our cars here, it was a very, very special moment. I got to run a Cup car here before the Xfinity Series came, so I had a little bit more experience with some of these guys, but it doesn't take long for these guys to catch up. So it's been fun to come here. It's close to home, and it's always fun to come here.
As a little kid from Kentucky, did you watch the Indy 500 growing up, and did you ever envision yourself racing here?
Never did, because I wasn't an open wheel guy. I raced go-karts growing up, and we watched the Indy 500 because of that. But we never got into sprint cars. Never got into even really thinking about driving the Indy car. So stock cars wasn't around this part of the world back then, and so really never did think about it. And then when I got to running Charlotte and Daytona and places like that, you always think about, man, hopefully one of these days, or maybe we could at least come see this place, and much less go around it. So there's so much heritage and so much history. Tom Sneva, those guys back, Mario Andretti, and all those guys. There's so many people that kind of paved the way for this racetrack. It's unbelievable we'd be able to race on it, get to race on it like they did.
Right. What first grabbed your interest in racing?
My dad was drag racing as David, Mark, and myself were growing up, and at age 8 when I started racing go-karts, and that was just the only thing we could do back then to race something. I was too young to race a drag car, so my dad drag raced there, but he was actually a big mentor of ours, and being able to get us into go-karts and be able to travel all over Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, and race the go-karts on a weekend, and that one thing left into another, and right along to late model, and growing up around Whitesville, Kentucky, there close to Owensboro. And my biggest track, I guess, to that date was when we went to the fairgrounds at Nashville, Tennessee, a 5/8 mile oval. Right. Now you go back there and it's just a little bull ring, But it's just one thing led to another. My brothers we were all competitive. We'd race bicycles, anything we could race, as we was growing up. So we had that competitive energy, and was able to turn it into, to a career basically.
You posted a picture on Twitter recently of a legend car, I believe some kind of Kentucky speedway in the background. You said it all started there in 1980. What was the story behind that?
That was Whitesville, Kentucky. I have a Legends car myself that I have at home, and I race a little bit every once in a while, and they had a Legends race there a couple weeks ago, and that was the first time I'd been back since, I think, 82 or 3, so nothing, as many things have changed in this world, it hadn't really changed a lot. A lot of memories there, and a lot of folks that you see that you raced against and grew up, challenging throughout a weekend on that race course, and it just worked out to be able to go back up there. So I was glad of that.
Right. In your early days in NASCAR, you worked for Junior Johnson, I believe, for a race or two.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like having such a massive icon underneath you? Right when you started.
Well, I really didn't know back then. I was so young, and I say I was young. I was late 20s and early 30s, and that's old these days. But I really didn't realize what the opportunity I had. I had Dale Earnhardt on the other end of the phone trying to get me to drive his Busch car, and Junior Johnson wanted me to come drive for him. So between 94 and 95, that was a big year for me, and gave me an opportunity to get my face out there and get my, the recognition I needed to go to the next level, to the Cup Series. And without Dale Earnhardt or without Junior Johnson, Earl Sadler out of Nashville gave me an opportunity to drive some Cup races before all that even happened. So without all those guys, I've been very blessed and very lucky to be able to in this sport for as long as I have. I've driven for Junior Johnson, Dale Earnhardt, Richard Childress, Richard Petty. I could just keep going on of the big-time names that I've been able to be around and learn from, and that's the most thing.
Go back to that first Cup race that you ran. Were the emotions high? Did you really understand the spotlight that you were on at that point, or did you not really understand how big a series was it at that point?
Well, I knew how big it was. These days, it would probably be even higher. your thoughts and things that you go through and your preparation would probably be even higher because of the media and because of the tracks we go to. But back then it was a little more laid back, you know, you might say. It's still the Cup Series, but the Winston Cup Series back then. And, you know, to be able to get on the same track as Richard Petty and Dale Earnhardt and Harry Gant and those guys, not a lot of these folks in this garage area can say that. So I'm just very blessed and to have that opportunity back then. And I tell everybody, each and every day there's people ask me about the sport, and if I had to get in it tonight, right now, I would never be able to do it. It's changed that much. And back then it was all about talent and all about what you can do on the racetrack. These days it's so much different.
Yeah.
It's just not even the same. You don't go in the same mindset basically when you come to the racetrack. You have a different mindset of what you're there to do. It's more, to me personally, it's more of a business than it is a hobby or you know, something that you're craved to do. In the 90s and late 90s and early 2000s, when I won my championship in 2000, every time I rode in a gate or in the tunnel of any racetrack, no matter from Daytona or Myrtle Beach, I had an opportunity to win, and those days were very special to me, and it was a good time back then.
When it comes to joining the sport, what advice would you give a younger driver who's maybe struggling or maybe comes into it a different way? You know, it is tougher nowadays, just said.
It is tough. You know, if you had sponsors behind you, you can go drive just about any car in this garage area, especially the Xfinity side.
Yeah.
So those guys have to be more talented in that area of our sport than they do driving. I think these days it doesn't hurt to have the capability of winning races, but if you have the sponsors behind you, the people that will carry you through that, it makes it easier for them. So
yeah.
In one aspect, I think it's easier, but in one aspect, I think it's harder because it's just tough to go out there and get money.
Right. So you said if it was like it was today, back in when you started, when marketing is so important, do you believe you would not have been able to get into it?
I don't think so. I've never been a guy that went out and chased money. I'm not a kind of guy that will go suit up in a suit and tie and go sit down and talk to people and trying to talk them into giving you money. And no disrespect at all. I mean, that's the talent that those guys, young guys, and agents have. But it was just so much different back then. These car owners would come and look to see what you're doing on a local track. I remember I run in Nashville, Tennessee there for a couple of years, and Dale Earnhardt and Harry Gant and those guys would come race with us every once in a while. And that's where I got my door opened, I think, is those guys being able to compete against them and to show them that you're capable of getting the job done.
Why do you think it changed? Why do you think it was easier back then? And
I think it's just corporate media. Corporate, the corporate companies wanting young talent that they can put a future into. Back then, I remember, sponsors would come and go year by year, every 3 or 4 years, and some would stay forever. But I think, I don't know. I'm probably not near the smartest guy in the garage area, but everything has changed. NASCAR is bigger. There's more folks that watch it. TV covers more their coverage is better. So all that saying, I think our corporate America wants to be a part of it, or sometimes they might not want to be a part of it. So, and it costs more to run these cars too. And we had, 30 races. Now we've got 38. So back then, so it costs more to go to the racetrack. It costs more to get these trucks up and down the road. Everything's more expensive in our world. So that just enables people and enables people to do it.
Right. So having two brothers in racing, obviously that racing path growing up, how much of a big impact did that have on you, having two brothers going for the same trophy?
Well, I had a baseline, basically. I mean, what David and Mark could do, I felt like I could do it as good or better, and they felt the same way. So, and I think we pushed each other. I think without David getting there, or without me getting there, or without Mark getting there, I don't think the rest of us would have got there. David kind of paved the way, and he was opening doors as he was going for Mark and myself. So, without the two brothers, I don't think it would have been as easy. It wasn't easy, but it would have been as easy.
Yeah.
And again, they were competitive, and I could bounce things. I know I could bounce things off of them, and they would shoot me straight. It's not like go to your competitor or another team or another crew chief or another driver. They're going to tell you what you want to hear, basically, and that hadn't changed at all.
Yeah. So there was a competition between you guys, or did you kind of try to help each other instead of trying to be competitive?
No, we helped each other. There's no doubt. And really, Mark and David raced together more as we grew up. I was always in a different class in go-karts, and there at Whitesville we talked about earlier, I was in a different class there. So really the only time, the first few times that we raced together was in the Busch Series.
Yeah.
So, you know, for me to see David out front, for me to see Mark out front, hopefully they would think the same thing. That was, that would make me smile. And I knew if they could get there, maybe we could share the same notes and share the same capabilities and make myself better, make my team better. So it was a big effort for all of us, and we were, there's not a lot of families that come along in this sport and all of us able to make it. So it's pretty fortunate.
Did you ever race for the win with one of them or both of them in a race?
Yeah, actually, we did a couple times. David, actually at Pikes Peak, and it had been in 2000, I think. We raced right down to the white flag, and I was able to get by him. And I passed him with 4 or 5 laps to go, and he got back by me. So it was a duel to the end. I'm sure he probably wanted the end the other way, but I was pretty happy. I was really happy with it, and it was a good day for me. And I hope that he can say the same.
Yeah. Do you guys reminisce together about those days in the 2000s and the 90s? Are they fun conversations for you guys?
Well, they are. But again, those are those days, and these are these days. And David, Mark are still in the sport. David's actually the safety inspector with NASCAR, so he works for NASCAR. And Mark is a crew chief now, so they're still digging. They're just not making laps like I am. So we've been fortunate. I mean, I think we can all say our blessings every day for what God's given us and given us the capabilities and the talent to be able to prolong my career here. And David, I think he's enjoying his job to be able to work with all these guys in the garage area, all the crew chiefs, all the drivers. I mean, I think if he had to create a job, that's probably what he would have created, and he's able to get that with NASCAR. So it's pretty blessed on his part too.
Yeah, you were with some big teams like Richard Childress Racing, and going back to those years, what did that do for your career? Being with a team that big, you were able to really showcase your talents.
Well, that's right. I mean, I was able to get in first class equipment, and we never won a cup race, come close a couple times, but it's just to know that you have the same. Back then, Kevin Harvick was my teammate. To know you have the same equipment that he has, and to baseline yourself off him, and you're doing it just as good a job as he is. That's a check in my head to know that I can get the job done with the right equipment, and for those guys to put me in put me in that car, that was a blessing for me, and they're never going to take that away from me. Yeah, I moved on, but they can never take those days away and those memories away from me.
Right. Any memory in the Cup Series of maybe a race that maybe have slipped through your fingers? You could have gotten that Cup win.
Well, we run second at New Hampshire in 02, I think. 02, 03, I can't remember. But, we had a restart, and Ward Burton ended up winning, and he got away from me there on the restart. And I actually restarted third, and I took way too much time to get around the second place, which was Dale Jarrett. And he got away too far in front of me before me to catch him. We were actually the fastest car there at the end of the race, and it just didn't work out for me. But those days still is second place. It's still a good day for us. And these races are so tough to win, and they're not getting any easier for sure. But they were still tough back then.
Yeah, you're obviously one of the only people to drive a black number 3 Goodwrench Chevy. Now, looking back on maybe footage of those races, do you still pinch yourself about that you were actually the one inside that car?
Well, I was working for Michael Waltrip, and Michael and Dale was really good friends, of course, and that was in 1994. And Michael knew I was, wanting to drive full time. I didn't want to spot and work for him all of my life, so my career was kind of put on hold at that point. And so Dale and Michael was talking, and I came home one afternoon, and Dale Earnhardt had a message on my recorder, my phone recorder. So for the next 3 or 4 hours, I was calling all my buddies to see who pulled a prank on me. It sounded like Dale Earnhardt, but didn't figure that it was him. But anyway, long story short, that worked out really good. I went to work for him, and that was he drove the Busch car until that, but it was just it wasn't a full-time deal. So we had 4 or 5 guys, and those 2 years were very learnable for me. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about life from Dale Earnhardt. Not just as much. I learned a lot about the racetrack, about the racing, but I probably learned more about life from him, and he taught me a lot, and I'll never forget those days. Just, take the racing out of it. I got to ride around his farm looking for deer and things like that, got to hunt with him. So those things were pretty special, and they can't take it away from me either.
Any fun hunting story with Dale from?
Yeah, we can't talk about that. We were actually culling a deer, killing a buck that wasn't going to make anything better, and he had a big stud buck beside him. We were on his farm, which he grew deer back then.
Wow.
So he just let me know that which deer to shoot, basically, and he was funny about it, but he was a good sport about it. And again, he was a good guy. And miss him every day.
Yeah. When you go back to those early days in your career, where maybe like the year 2000, you won the championship, comparing that to what you're doing today or the last few years, it's such a different roller coaster. It seems like. How do you look at that transition for you?
I look at it as a job these days. And I'm getting in the years where I enjoy doing other things, so I don't have to. I mean, I put 100% when I'm at the racetrack, but I live back in Kentucky now, so I'm away from North Carolina, and I really can't be around the race team. So, to be able to go out there and have a chance to compete is one thing, but and we're competitive with the team. We're a TriStar here, and I think we're racing for 15th to 20th every week, and some of the start. I've done some start and park stuff the last 4 or 5 years. Again, I'm getting a paycheck for doing that, but it's not the most fun.
Yeah.
I'd rather have an opportunity to go out and compete with Kyle Busch. I feel like that those guys are no better than I am, even at my age. So to just have an opportunity to do that, those opportunities are probably far and few between and probably gone. So I just look at it as, it's my work right now. It's my job. Try to do the best job I can for each lap I do. Try to give the feedback to the team to make our other teams better, and if I can do that, I feel like I'm successful.
So you still have the confidence that you believe you can go out there and win races if you were with the right team?
I think so. I mean, there's nothing that's changed in my world other than getting older. I feel I still have the sensation and the feel I need, I think, in my butt to be able to tell the guys what I need in a race car. We're just racing a bunch of cup teams in the Xfinity side, basically.
Yeah.
Those guys have all the resources they can pull from, so I can't, and we can't overcome that each and every week.
Yeah. Your final, major full-time Cup season was 2007. You worked with Gene Haas in that number 66.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, right now he's one of the biggest teams in the sport. So how do you look at what he's been able to put together since you were part of his early career?
Well, without Tony Stewart there, it would still be Gene Haas Racing.
Yeah.
Gene was great to me. He gave me an opportunity there for a couple of years, and but with Tony Stewart coming over, that brought the people he needed to. And it's all about, not that Gene spent as much money as the Hendrick Motorsports did, I think, but it's the people surrounding those race cars and putting their hands on them each and every week has made the difference. So, Gene's done great. He did great to get Tony beside him there, and I feel like Gene would probably tell you the same thing. Without Tony, it probably wouldn't be the same thing. So having 4 teams over there, I feel like that's a bonus. We had 2 back then, and Johnny Sauter was my teammate. He was young, just like I was, and we probably didn't really know what we wanted, and the people surrounding us didn't really know what they wanted. We was kind of following Hendrick's footsteps there, but to put it all together, some of the pieces of the pie was missing, I think, but. Gene's done good. He's probably, like you said, one of the top dogs in the garage area these days. And, Tony I feel like has done that for him.
Yeah. So there's a lot of drivers, coming in and out of the sport. Tony Stewart's retiring. Jeff's back again, but he's kind of hung it up. Mentally, what's that like for you? Because you've been here, you have so much experience. You've seen so many drivers come and go. For you, what's the mentality like when you see drivers hanging up?
It's tough because that means you're getting older too. You know what I mean? And I'm getting to the age where, again, I want to do something different too, you know what I mean? But I still enjoy it, and when I quit enjoying it, I'm probably going to do something different. But it is tough to see, Jeff Gordon's a lot younger than I am, and but he got to a point where maybe he needed to do something different too and wanted to do something different. Tony is, those guys are way too young to be doing that, but they have other things they enjoy. And I think that's the wear and tear of going up and down the road. I know they're in airplanes, but they're still traveling. They're away from home. I enjoy being at home with my wife and my dogs. I've got deer that I hunt. I've got a farm in Kentucky that I enjoy hunting turkey and deer, and so those guys are probably no different than I am. They have different things they want to do, and they've done it for a long time too. So it's just time for them guys to do something different.
Yeah. like with Dale, he's out of the car because of an injury. Tony was out a couple times. Have you ever raced injured? Have you ever been injured in a race car? And what's your thoughts on that?
I broke my tailbone at Pocono in '03, I think. And yeah, for the next at least 2 months, I was riding on a donut, basically, in the seat. The doctors were giving me the stuff I needed to make it through the race, but that's really the only injury I've ever had. And those guys, that's their livelihood and that's their business. And unfortunately, when you step out of a car, there's always somebody there to get in. You know what I mean? So these days they're not any different than they were back then. I mean, if you mess up, there's somebody going to be to replace you. So jobs are tough to come by, and especially the guys on that side, the Cup side.
Yeah.
Those jobs are very few and far between. They hardly ever change. So I can see, Dale Earnhardt, Dale Earnhardt Jr. He would never have to race again, and he's made his name in his sport. But I know he's still got a lot of things to do in a race car, and he'll be back before long.
Was that Pocono crash 2003?
It was, yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever think about stepping out? I don't know where you were financially. You said Junior, he can step away because he is.
Yeah.
He is settled down.
Yeah.
What was the mentality at that time for you?
Never really thought about it, to tell you the truth. We wasn't hurting for money. Didn't really think about money back then. You know what I mean? So, had all the money we ever needed. And my main focus was racing, and I had to do the job. That particular race, we had 3 or 4 laps to go, and a caution came out. I was going to end up being third in that race. Caution came out, bunched everybody up, and I got wrecked on a restart. So, by leaving that track with a broke tailbone, I knew that I had a car that obviously had a chance to win. So that gets you back to the next race, having that opportunity, having those kind of opportunities, and don't matter how much pain you're in, you're going to get set in there and try to do the best job you can.
Yeah. Jumping forward, what have you learned most about being with small teams? You see so much hard work here with these guys. They want it just as much as the Cup guys, maybe even more. What have you learned the most these past few years?
It's just you have to do without, basically, be able to. Back when I was racing full time, we never worried about how we was going to buy tires or how we was going to buy anything for the race car. We just did it. The bills got paid. Fortunately, I wasn't on the end of that part of it, but nowadays, you worry about if you're going to have practice tires to practice on, or who's going to give you a set of tires to practice on. So just the money part of it is the only thing that worries my race team. It's hard for me to worry about it because it's not going to be good for me to worry about it. I can't do nothing about it, but the race team comes week in and week out worrying about how we are going to make it through practice, through the race, and get back home, and not that things are that tight, but just trying to save enough money to make sure that we have the right resources and enough money to do the things we need to do to get better.
Mm-hmm. You got the top 10 at Daytona a few weeks ago. Compare how big that was for the team compared to maybe when you were with a big team and you were winning. Compare the two. Is it really that different, or is it just a whole bunch? Is it just a big accomplishment for you?
Well, it's been, I don't know, I can't remember, 10 years or so, or 9 years since I'd been in the top 10.
Yeah.
So it was pretty big for me, not that I ever dreamed that I was, not capable of doing that, but I used to hate those restrictor plate races, and you can flip a coin whether you're going to make it or not, whether you're going to get in a wreck or not. So to be able to be on the good side of that coin was relishing for us. The team, that could be their best finish all year long. So I was happy for those guys, and they work, like you said, they work just as hard as the big teams do. So to have that support and to be able to give a little bit back to them, I felt like I had a little hand in that. So it's good, and I enjoyed every minute of it, and hopefully they did too.
You touched on this a little bit about your thoughts on the Xfinity Series and how it is now. So many young drivers coming up, and you're definitely in a different position than you once were. So what are your thoughts on the Xfinity Series today?
Well, I think it's as big as it ever has. The things I see on TV, the commercials they do, and, they never did that it wasn't like that back in the Busch Series in 2000 and 2001 when I was really into it heavy. But so the exposure that the drivers are getting, the exposure that the sponsors and teams are getting are second to none. They get as much exposure as the Cup teams do. So I think that's awesome. I think Xfinity and NASCAR has done such a good job on advertising and getting the media involved with it. sometimes you hear people say the Xfinity Series is kind of like the Cup Series was a couple years ago. I think they're all over it, and they just keep raising the bar each and every year. The sponsors, the car owners, the crew chiefs, drivers, everybody, to be able to get their name out there. And because of NASCAR and the media letting us do that, that's why it's got there, I think.
What are your thoughts on the Sprint Cup Series? They have new low downforce packages, changing the racing up. I believe your last race was, you did a race last year. So what are your thoughts on the series and how it's been moving forward?
Well, I mean, the only thing that I think is great. I think they've done a great job to be able to make the competition as level as they can. NASCAR has kind of got everybody such in a box. The crew chiefs is kind of out of their hand. I mean, Harold Holly, my crew chief in 2000, man, he was working day and night trying to get a competitive edge. And these guys, they don't have much of a competitive edge anymore. So I don't know if that's good or bad. I think as a driver, I think that's bad, because I feel like if I hadn't had that back in the early days, I might have not have been able to win races like I did, or as many races. So, I credit my crew chief, Harold Holly, for being able to do that. And he was the innovator in some of the stuff that they've taken away from these guys, you know what I mean? So, again, but NASCAR is still, they've got the cars close enough. And, for a person to get an advantage, it's pretty slim to none. And then when they go back through that room after the race, they get caught sometimes because they're trying to make advantage in the race. And like last week, Matt got a penalty because his car didn't clear inspection after the race, the laser inspection, which that means they're doing something during the race or after the race starts to make that, to move things around on the car. So they're working on it, but NASCAR's got a pretty good hold on it.
How much tougher were the cars to drive back then in the 90s and the early 2000s? Are there many similarities, or are there many differences between the two?
I don't think they were tougher to drive. I think the driver had a lot more input in it. These days, the cars are so balanced or imbalanced, the driver can't make a difference. I mean, I could let off earlier, pick the gas up earlier, or vice versa back then, and make the car do different things. These days, if you're not 99% correct on your chassis, you'll never make a difference. The driver does. So I think that's getting back to one of your earlier questions. I think that's what some of these drivers are fighting these days. They can't make a difference. I mean, you could win late model races all your life, and come in here, and if you don't have a car to drive, you're not going to be able to keep up and be competitive for these guys.
Right. I had two more questions. What was your favorite paint scheme in your career? Many people would say the Nesquik car. Did you have a favorite paint scheme?
Well, I mean, the 3 car and the 43 car was pretty special to me, but the Nesquik car was really special. I can't really say. Some of those Cheerios paint schemes were pretty cool. They had a gold one here, and I can't remember there was a Cheerios logo, but they had a gold car here at the Brickyard, and we finished like 10th or 11th there in 05 or 04. So, I can't put a hand on one of them, but just looking back at my success, I'd have to be probably leaning towards the Nesquik car.
Right. And your final question, how would you like to be remembered in the sport? Would you like to be remembered as a champion, or just some underdog from Kentucky who made it big time?
Well, I hope they remember me as a champion. I hope they remember me as a hard worker and a clean and respected driver. Really try hard to do the job I can, the best job I can on the racetrack, not to make somebody else's day wrong, just by what I do on the racetrack. So hopefully they can remember me by that. And the races that I won, I don't remember one that I took advantage of somebody to win it. So hopefully they can remember it being just me having respect for the competitors and being able to wheel a race car.
I definitely appreciate your time.
You're welcome, man.
Great interview. Thank you very much.
Appreciate
Good
it.
luck. Thank you.